The story revolves around a highly ethical judge who ends up breaking every rule to protect his son. Welcome to the Book of Recaps. The tale kicks off with our main character Adam, a 17-year-old kid. He's with a girl who's his teacher. I don't need to spell out what they were doing. Now let's meet the second key character, Adam's father, Michael. He's at his wife's grave on her death anniversary. From there, he heads to a house and starts peering inside for a reason we'll uncover later. Meanwhile, Adam gets ready and leaves home. He takes his mom's photo and some flowers to honor her memory. He drives his dad's car to get it done fast and head to school. Then the scene shifts to a gangster's house. His son, Rocco Baxter, is celebrating his birthday. His dad, Jimmy, gifts him a vintage bike and Rocco takes it out for a spin. At the same spot where Adam goes to place his mom's photo, some people show up. They don't seem happy about it, so Adam takes off. A little later, he notices a car tailing him, which makes him nervous. This stress triggers his breathing trouble. He's got asthma. That's when it hits. As he reaches down for his inhaler, his car slams into Rocco's bike. The people chasing him bolt. Adam steps out and sees Rocco gasping his last breaths. Panicked, he dials emergency services. But before he can say anything, Rocco stops breath. If he tells the police, he's done for. His asthma flares up again. To save himself, he drags himself back to the car, grabs his inhaler and uses it, but in his fear he leaves it behind. Two big things happen here. First, he pockets Rocco's phone. Second, parts of Rocco's bike get lodged in his car, turning into evidence later. On the way, his car runs out of gas. He pulls into a gas station and fills it up himself. Right then, the police call back, not to him but to Rocco's phone, which he'd used earlier. At that moment, a guy spots him bleeding and yells at him to leave. That shout gets recorded by the police, becoming more proof. Meanwhile, Michael's in court handling a case. A black woman's accused of smuggling drugs in her private areas. An officer swears he saw her do it in a bathroom with his own eyes. A lot of folks might know this already. In America, people are often split into two groups. White people called Native Americans here and black people known as African Americans. The trouble is, some white folks think they're better, so they don't care much about black folks. The officer's lying about her. He claims he stood at the door and watched her hide the drugs, giving every detail. Now remember earlier when the judge was peeking into a house? That was her house. He was checking if you could see the bathroom from the door. It's impossible. If you can see through a closed door, you're not human. So Michael rules fairly, clears her of all charges and sets her free. This impresses a leader, his best friend, who'll help him later as mayor. Back to Adam. He gets home and tries to wipe out evidence like bloodstains, but fear keeps him from finishing the job. When his dad walks in, he sees Adam acting weird and gets suspicious. He sits him down and asks what's wrong. When he hears the full story, his own wrongdoing kicks in. The police won't let this slide. He tells Adam to spill every detail, what happened, how it went down, everything. Then he calls Detective Nancy, saying he'll meet her at the station. Next, he calls his girlfriend Lee, a top-notch lawyer, to save his son. As a judge, he knows confessing might lighten the punishment, so he takes Adam to the station to confess. But when they arrive, he spots Jimmy Baxter and his wife. Seeing Jimmy, he freezes. The kid who died was Jimmy's son. If Jimmy finds out who killed him, he'll never let it go. Terrified, Michael turns back, heads home, gathers Adam's clothes from that day, cleans the blood off the car and dumps the evidence in a river. Jimmy and his wife go to the crash site. There he finds the inhaler Adam left in a rush. That night's brutal for both families. Sleeps nowhere in sight. So Michael meets his friend Charlie at night, begging him to make the car vanish, no questions asked. Charlie agrees, calls his guys right away. They hire a guy from the Desire Group, a mafia outfit tied to Jimmy's crew. They task a man named Kofi with stealing the car. Next morning, Michael plans ahead. If the police track them down, they won't suspect much. They build an alibi, visiting the graveyard, hitting a cafe so they can say they were somewhere else during the accident. Meanwhile, Kofi swipes the car. Then the detective Michael called shows up, asking why he contacted her. He's stuck. He can't tell the truth, so he needs a solid excuse. He says his car got stolen yesterday and he was calling to report it. He downplays it, hoping she won't dig. To sell it, he says he's not upset about the theft, he's glad. But the car held his wife's memories, keeping him from moving on. He piles on stuff like that, but she doesn't buy it. She flat out says it doesn't matter how desperate the thief was, she'll find that car. Sure enough, they recover it that day, probably because it's a white judge's car. Now Michael spins a fresh lie about how it was stolen. He's got a fake answer for every question she throws. As they're about to hand the car back, a bike piece pops out in plain sight. That makes her think this car was in an accident. She's already got Rocco's hit-and-run case, so she ties it to this. The police drag Kofi to Jimmy's hideout. They do whatever it takes to make him say if he killed Rocco. They raid his place too, hunting for Rocco's phone. During this, Lee visits Michael. She's there because he called her that night, but he lies again, saying it was just for drinks. He brings up the case, hoping she'll get Kofi out of jail. Meanwhile, the Desire group pressures Kofi to take the fall. They threaten his mom, brother, and sister if he doesn't. Adam tells his dad he stopped at a gas station after the crash, so Michael cooks up a story to cover it. He goes there, checks the CCTV, and wipes all the footage from that day. He doesn't want anything pointing Jimmy his way. At the same time, Jimmy's other son, Carlo, is in jail. He killed a 15-year-old black kid because he didn't like his skin color. Michael denies his bail, even when Carlo pleads using Rocco's name. He won't let him out. The murder's tied to race, and Carlo free means danger for some, but somehow he gets out. At the graveyard, his mom tells him to avenge his brother. Carlo ends up in Kofi's jail. Next day, Kofi's body's hauled out in a bag. The fight and death get buried, no trace of Baxter being there. Carlo's sent back to his old jail. Money and power twist everything. Even the forensic reports faked to hide the truth. Days later, Kofi's whole family's wiped out. Only his little brother survives, barely hanging on. The Desire group takes him in to keep him safe. The revenge game stops here, but someone texts Michael, saying they've got proof Rocco's killer is his son. They send a picture of his house. Freaked out, he gets home to find the door open. His dog's out cold. Someone tried to poison it. An old lady says she saw a guy go in. Things get chaotic here with tons of characters colliding. Adam starts getting close to Rocco's sister. They're classmates and later they're a couple. Carlo shaves his head, gets out, and jumps back into drugs. Kofi's lawyer Lee won't drop the case even after his death. She pushes for another forensic check to get the truth, but needs family permission. The main story, tangled with blackmail, keeps rolling. Plus, the police close the case and hand Jimmy all the evidence. There's a call recording from Rocco's phone in it. Listening over and over, they catch the voice of the guy telling Adam to move his car. That pins it to a gas station. They hit up stations in the area showing Kofi's picture, asking if he was there. They finally reach one where the owner doesn't know Kofi but recognizes Michael. He saw him check and delete the CCTV footage. Piecing it all together, they figure out Kofi wasn't the killer. Michael was, because it's his car. Using this, a blackmailer calls Michael to a spot demanding cash. It's the driver who saw Adam bleeding and snapped his picture at the station. Michael doesn't pay up. He buys him a big boat instead, warning that if he talks, he'll stop payments and the bank will take it. They settle it. Right then, Jimmy and his guys show up. They're there to kill Michael and wrap it up. To save his son, he lies again, saying he drove the car. He claims the driver saw him, so he came to shut him up. Meanwhile, Carlo's drug dealings pick up. Nancy tells Michael she's arresting Carlo today. As Jimmy's about to strike, Michael says if he's spared, he'll keep Carlo out of jail, whatever it takes. Jimmy doesn't kill him. He takes out the blackmailer instead. They strike a deal. Michael saves Carlo and Jimmy lets him live. When Kofi's forensic gets redone, the Real story comes out. How viciously he was killed. His head was nearly smashed, bones shattered everywhere. Carlo's DNA's under his nails, proving he did it. That's enough for a death penalty. Now it's a test. Can Michael clear him despite this? First day, bail's denied due to the crime's weight. Jimmy curses Michael in court, knowing he's untouchable. But Michael fires back, warning he'll arrest him for contempt if it happens again. Jimmy storms out, glaring at him. How dare he talk back? Michael says it had to look real to stay on the case. He sets a plan. He drinks at a bar with another judge, then gets her busted for drunk driving so she can't take over. He accuses her of drug addiction, saying she needs rehab or she'll lose her job. He blocks media and staff from court so no one knows what's going on. Protests erupt outside. There's no transparency. The jury's just there in name. They vote at the end, guilty or not, based on that, not evidence. The prosecutors got a DNA report tying it to Carlo. He claims self-defense, but can't explain how he got to Kofi's cell or why he feared a 17-year-old enough to kill him like that. When more proof of Kofi's death comes up, Michael shuts it down. It'd sway the jury against Carlo, which he can't have. The defense says Kofi bribed a warden, went to Carlo's cell and attacked, backed only by CCTV of Kofi standing scared outside. Days later, Michael spots a black woman on the jury. He digs online, finds stuff, and figures she'll vote guilty. He kicks her off, saying she read about the case and can't be fair. How far will he sink to save his son? A witness comes to the police, Carlo's friend who could end it all. Carlo told him before arrest how he smashed Kofi's head like a watermelon, per his mom's orders and more. He'll talk if they protect him from Jimmy who's after him. They plan to bring him to court. Defense objects, they weren't told but they agree eventually. At the next hearing, Michael meets him to check his mental state. He slips something in his water so he can't testify clearly. Sure enough, the guy collapses mid-statement and court stalls. Michael wipes the glass and thermos clean, no trace left. Back in court, he strikes the guy's words, saying he wasn't sane. The story splits here to two key threads. First, Adam's affair with his teacher. When Fanny learns he's with Sophia, she tells him to back off. Adam wonders what if he tells Sophia he killed her brother. He talks to his uncle Charlie about it. Charlie warns Fanny, if she's near Adam again she's fired and a minor relationship means rape charges. She figures Adam told Charlie about them, so she tells Charlie Rocco's real killer isn't Kofi, it's Adam. Kofi's lawyer Lee has proof Kofi was at an exam when Rocco died. He didn't do it, someone else did. She tells Kofi's brother. The Desire Group killed Kofi after making him take the fall for Rocco. Carlo thought Kofi killed his brother so he murdered him in jail. Carlo's lawyer drills him on what to say in court to win the jury. He testifies that Kofi came to his cell, attacked him and he fought back in self-defense. He says Kofi left his cell. Lee checks. It locks from outside, proving he's lying. The prosecutor brings this to court, shredding Carlo's story. The truth seeps out to those watching, like Lee and Nancy, but they're silenced. The mayor offers Nancy a corruption-free gig to lead. Lee, dating Michael, stays quiet. She dumps him over the truth but doesn't talk. She gives him a shot to reopen the case and nab the real killer for justice. He won't. He writes a note. The jury wants evidence. Both sides fight it but he allows it, playing a recording of Rocco's last breaths. It's just that. No big reveal but it hits the jury hard. They feel Carlo didn't wrong his brother's killer. Every juror votes not guilty, not one says guilty. Case closed. Sophia invites Adam to a party that night. Kofi's brother, Sam, grabs a gun for revenge. Here's the twist. Jimmy found that inhaler early on. He knows Adam drove, not Michael. He stayed quiet to use Michael to free Carlo. Now Carlo's out, he calls Michael to the party to watch Adam die. Guards block Michael at the door. Jimmy hugs Adam, taunting him, your son's mine. Michael tries again, guards stop him. Kofi's brother slips in, pulls the gun and fires at Carlo. It misses, hits Adam's neck. He dies like Rocco, choking out. Story's done. Adam had to go. Jimmy was on him. Good, he died by the hand of a guy who lost everything because of him and his dad's lies.